Part two of the listening mini-series. Okay, so this is more about reflective listening. This is more about when you are listening to somebody who needs you to hold space for them, who needs you to be a guide, who needs you to help them tap into the deeper parts of themselves that know the answers. So this is really powerful for coaches, for therapists, for parents, when your child needs you to listen. If your spouse, your partner needs you to listen to them. This is how we show up when people are in some kind of breakdown, when people have made a request for us to hold space for them in our listening. Okay, I get really excited about this one, partly because this, again, is what I do for a living, and partly because when someone is able to show up for me like this, it makes a tremendous difference in my life. So going back to part one, where I talked about the children who were able to move forward once they were heard and witnessed and acknowledged, this really truly is a human trait. And we do a lot of, in the spiritual community, sometimes there is shaming of someone telling their story. And I can understand to a certain point that you don't want to focus on the negative or traumatic things that have happened to the point where you're continually reliving them, re-traumatizing yourself, and where you're kind of getting that trauma on everyone else, right? But there's something very powerful about being able to speak of the trauma that you've been through in a space that can be held for you, where somebody can really hear you, truly witness you, acknowledge you for what you've been through. So I want to start with this. If you are the person listening, just first understand how vital and important what you're doing is for people's mental and emotional health. Can you get that? Like, just saying that out loud, I just felt this huge whoosh go through my body. For a long time, I didn't think what I did was that important. I thought people come to me and they sit and have a cup of coffee and they kind of vent to me, and sometimes they listen to a couple things I say and then they go home. But over and over and over, they'd say to me, "Oh, I feel so much relief. I feel so much lighter. I feel heard." I can see now, from being on the other side of that, how important and vital it truly is. So that's where I want to start. Know that you being able to listen like that blesses the individual and blesses the collective. How many people would not have hurt others if they'd been truly witnessed, heard, and acknowledged? Okay? So I want to start with a couple of the do nots. So I don't want to focus on the negative, but I do want to say there are some things that take away from holding space. And the first one that comes to mind for me is being dismissive. So I see this on social media a lot. Somebody posts and says, "Well, my baby's been sick for 3 days and I'm so exhausted." And somebody else will get on there and say something like, "Well, you should just be grateful that you even have a baby." Or, they're saying something that basically dismisses the person's pain, upset, or experience. So let's really watch that. When we're listening to hold space, let's really watch the tendency to say something dismissive about that person's experience. If you don't understand their experience, ask questions. Ask clarifying questions, because not only does that help you to understand, that actually helps them to dig deeper, to get to some answers that are inside of themselves. So that I already mentioned this one, but this one applies to both the deep listening and the reflective listening, which is please try to not be a one-upper. "Oh, you have a cold? I have a brain tumor. So, right? Or well, I know someone who blah, blah, blah. Or here again, making it about you, especially when you're holding space for somebody else, try as much as possible not to make it about you. If you do have an experience that you've had that you feel would show empathy or that you feel has a solution in it, be brief and be relevant and still put it back to them, right? Oh, yes, I so get that. I've been there. There's this amazing website that helped me a lot. So I'll get that to you later. Just keep going. Tell me more. Okay, tell me more is a really powerful phrase when you're listening to hold space. Okay? Making sure that you are acknowledging what they say. Acknowledging it in a way that you are maybe repeating back to them or saying, so would it be fair to say that you felt not seen by your husband in that moment? Or is there a better way of putting it? You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna kind of repeat back to them. It doesn't have to be exactly in the same words, but you're gonna be clarifying. How many times have you been the person who needed space held for you, and the person listening keeps misunderstanding what you're trying to say? Again, I've been on both sides. Okay, so, but you're like, no, you don't get it. This is what I'm trying to say. And after a while, you just get frustrated and you stop talking. It's like, okay, you're not the person who can hear this. Really, as the listener, really make an attempt to clarify so that you know the two of you are on the same page. We don't feel witnessed unless we know they're on the same page in what it is that we are trying to communicate. So you can empathize without getting pulled into somebody's story. You can hold space for their truest truth and still meet them where they are. I think there's a fear that sometimes people have that if they empathize, that they're enabling. I think that we can do both. I think that we can both empathize with where they currently are and hold the space for them to see through that, to come to the other side of their pain, not in a way where they're overriding it or avoiding it, but in a way where they see the gift. But that's not usually where they need to start. If someone comes to you and they say, my husband just left me, and they're sobbing, you may be thinking in your mind, oh, thank God. Oh, that guy was I'm so glad he's gone. But that's not what you say to your dear friend. You say, I'm so sorry you're hurting. Talk to me. I'm right here. What do you need? How can I support you? And then listen to what they have to say. Maybe 2 weeks down the road, when they're starting to feel some of the relief, then you can say, now there's so much available for you, but not in that moment. Not in the moment that people are in really deep pain. So part of this is meeting people where they are in the moment. Okay, this can be true of so many things. And this is one of my personal biggest pet peeves about the spiritual community, right? We are all one. We are all connected. There's no need for upset. Bitch, please. I am feeling upset and separate AF right now. That does not help me. Let's talk about where I am right now. And then, just like the kid calling out their friend's name repeatedly, then once that has been heard and witnessed, then we can move forward into maybe something that is a little more long-term truth, right? So the other thing that kind of goes along with this is don't assume. Let's use this example. Somebody says, oh, my kids are driving me crazy. And because your kids are also driving you crazy, says every single parent practically in the world, you assume that you know why, how, the details of that. they could be in a totally different space with it. Okay? So ask questions. Don't assume. Just say, "Oh, yeah? Tell me, how are they driving you crazy? What's going on, girl?" Or guy. Talk to me. Tell me what's going on. Don't assume you know. Also, it doesn't, especially if you're holding space for somebody else, honestly, it's not really about you. So try not to take things personally. If they're ranting and raving and they say something like, "And nobody's been there for me," don't, try, even if you have that moment of like, "I've been there for you," let it be, right? And let it be about them. Let's all have times where we can allow the situation to be about the other. That's why I wanted to break these into part 1 and part 2. Because part 1, that's the conversation. That's the back and forth conversation we have where it's about both of us. But there really are times when people need us to be okay so that they cannot be okay. They need us to not need to express so that they can just express. And trust me, you'll be so grateful to be on the other side of it at some point. And when you are willing to listen, it's way more common for you to then have somebody who's willing to listen to you when it's your turn. We all have times of crisis. We all have times of breakdown. We all have times where we really, just for even a few minutes, need it to be about us. What a beautiful gift to give somebody else to let that happen, right? Okay, so again with the body language, again with the watching for cues. I was in marriage counseling many years ago with one of my husbands, and this particular husband had a very difficult time expressing, a very difficult time putting emotion into language, and a difficult time really even feeling emotion. We were in a marriage counseling session, and the counselor asked him a question, and as he spoke, his voice cracked, his eyes teared up, and he just started, his body kind of started crumpling. And I was so, in that moment, I was so excited because something was cracking through. But the counselor at the time was like, "Okay, never mind. We don't have to talk about it," and skipped over it, which was so frustrating to me because it's like, oh my gosh, if the counselor had said, "Talk to me, what's going on? I can see that you're feeling very upset. Can you tell me what you're upset about?" The possibility could have been that something could have really cracked open there. So when you're talking to somebody, maybe their words sound neutral, but they've got tears in their eyes, their voice is cracking, their body language is telling you that there's some emotion there. And you can lovingly ask, "Hey, what's that? Talk to me. What's going on for you? I'm right here." Which leads to the next thing, which is reassurance. In reflective listening, in the type of listening where you're holding space for somebody, reassuring them that they are not a burden, that you are happy to be there, that you actually want to be there with them in this space is huge. There are many of us that have a fear, even a deep fear of being a burden on people. And it's what keeps us quiet when we most need support. So let's let the people in our lives know that they are not a burden to us, that we want to support them. Can you see how profound that could be? To feel like you're in such a safe and loving and nurturing space. So this is with these two conversations, I just really wanted to bring to light a missing piece right now in the collective. So many people yelling, screaming, expressing, needing to be heard. So few people able, willing to listen, to really hear what is being asked for, to hear past the anger, right? To hear past the upset and into what is really truly needed from that person at that time. If we can start to do this, even if just me and all of my Coffee with Dawni listeners right now chose to do this, there could be a ripple effect, because once somebody is heard, they are more able to hear. So you support someone, help them get in a really good place. Now they can support someone else, help them get in a really good place, and it's a domino effect. So what seems like a small, simple thing is actually profound. And it's really essential right now. So I want to hear from you guys. Who's willing to join me in this? Who's willing to work on their listening skills? Both in that connected back and forth conversation and in the holding space conversation. What has your experience been being on both sides of this? I want to hear from you. I love you. I hope that there is true value here for you. Every day, every time I sit down with my cup of coffee and this camera, I'm thinking of every single one of you and having such a strong desire to connect and to create value. I hope it's working. I love you guys. May your coffee be strong and your life be blessed. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. It really helps out my channel. And if you would be interested in working with me further, you can check out DawniAngel.com. I would love to come speak to your group, come to your business to do a training, be on your podcast, my personal favorite, or even work with you one-on-one.